Hey, what's up, everybody? So today what we're going to be working on is getting this intake manifold set down and installed with gaskets and gasket maker. And then we're also going to start working on getting all the rocker arm geometry set up here. Um, I have all brand new ARP bolts for well, pretty much everything, but for the intake specifically, I have sitting over here. Um, I'm not sure if I'm going to set the front cover on just yet. I think I will eventually, just not right now. I'm not sure if I need to get back in there for anything yet. Um, and then yeah, we'll start working on the rocker arms after all that. So let's get some gloves on. Alright, so I'm just going to cut this square of ARP bolts out. They look like they are between 3/8 and 10 millimeters. So let's grab that socket wrench. Come on, little buddy. So these vacuum sealed packages are really cool, really nice. Makes it real fun to get these little guys out. Pretty sure that's, yep, 3/8. Alright, we're also going to break out the ARP loop for this. So on almost every one of ARP's bolts, they always recommend that you place ARP loop under the head of the bolt. So not on the threads, which is I've done in the past, but on the actual bolt head down here, so that it's not causing friction on the washer here, and it actually lets it go in and seat better. So let's grab my little wrench. Right, and the paperwork has the actual recommended torque order, which looks like it's just inside corner, cross, cross, outside. Sorry, inside, outside, or sorry, inside, outside, outside. So that's really easy. Open this up. Grab a bolt and a washer. So the one nice thing about, I didn't do gaskets. That would have been real awkward. The one really nice thing about small block Chevys compared to Fords is you're actually bolting the bolts straight up, or at an angle with the head instead of straight up and down. So it gives it a tighter grip instead of the straight up and down bolts, which like it doesn't bite into the material as strong, and it lets it spread the load better with it like this versus like Ford's. So I have to give them the credit where credit's due. I still don't like small block Chevys. I don't like any other motor except for Ford's, basically. But, you know, that's okay. I can still respect these without having to own one myself. So I'm just reading through the gasket instructions, making sure that what I'm installing is the appropriate one. So on the document, it's actually stating whether or not you have to use the restricted intake gasket or the unrestricted one. And from the looks of it, it is the unrestricted one. So that should be perfectly fine. I believe that's what these are. Seeing as how there's only one set in this kit. Manifold restrictor insets. Yeah, we're not using those. So I can go ahead and line both of these up, make sure they actually fit properly, which it looks like they do. Making sure the side that's marked this side up is actually up. Okay, so that's not, oh, something like this. Yep, that works. Alright, so what I'm going to do is around the water ports, I'm going to put some gasket maker to help these gaskets seal properly. Just because I've had issues where it won't seal. I've seen it before. I'm pretty sure it's fairly common on at least Fords. I don't quite know about these small block Chevys, but I'm going to assume they're the same. So better to be safe than sorry. I will grab my gasket maker and throw a little bit around the ports. So I'm not quite sure if you guys are going to be able to see, but I'm just putting a little bit around the outside of the water ports. So this will also help keep the intake gasket held and glued into place, so that, you know, when you're installing your manifold down, you don't have to worry about the gaskets sliding around and going where you don't want them. So when I do this, I'm going to actually end up installing it on both. I'm going to end up doing this on both of these. Is that an exhaust port? Says EGR. I will be installing gasket maker on both the top and the bottom of this gasket, just to ensure that everything works the way that it should, and there's no leaks on either side of the gasket, because you never know which side might decide it wants to just start leaking. All right. So both of those are set down. So let's put a little bit of gasket maker on the inside of the gasket now, or I guess technically the outside. So I don't think this is going to be necessary because of how great of a fit that intake manifold has on this, but a little bit just for insurance goes a long way. Because taking this motor in and out of a little Stingray Corvette probably going to be a nightmare. So doing any work on it's probably going to be a nightmare. Okay, so those are both done. Get this sealed back up. Now I believe these little rubber gaskets are what's actually supposed to be used right here. So I'm going to put this underneath this corner. Okay. Put this underneath this corner. This one? No. This one? No. Okay. This one. Success. You know, I'm not real confident with a little piece of rubber right here. I'm just gonna use a little bit of gasket maker. I don't care. Again, I'd rather not have any form of leaks on this motor. Again, I don't know a whole lot about these specific motors, but I know on Fords, the we call it the China wall, always leaks every time. So if this is anything like that, then I imagine the results will be quite similar and quite not fun to have to deal with. This could also be total overkill, who knows? Again, having not dealt with these motors a whole bunch, I don't actually know. Pull that down. Let's get a little bit on the top of this. So I'm making sure that when I apply this, I get a little bit on the corners themselves. It's just a good idea, and you know, if you don't get any gasket maker or any good seal right there, it's a very good spot for it to leak in the corners. Just want to make sure I cover all of my bases. And realistically, what's it gonna hurt? Alright, I think I actually got that first little drop there. Alright. So I'm still putting a little bit of ARP lube around the bolts. So, do these bolts really need the ARP lube on the heads? Realistically, probably not. But if you want to get them torqued just perfect to spec, it's not the worst idea. And again, it's one of those things where it doesn't really hurt anything to have it there. So, I don't know, I just think it's useful. You guys can do as you will. I'm sure there's much more educated people than me that know whether or not you should be using it for every single ARP bolt that you have. I'm indifferent. It doesn't matter too much. So on the intake bolts specifically for me, I think it's useful because you really want to make sure that all of your bolts are torqued down properly, but pretty much anything that has a sealing surface on it, something that's more or less super vital to your engine, you know, head stud or head bolts, intake bolts, crankshaft bolt, you know, rod bolts, main cap bolts, all of those things super important. They should be properly torqued, but all the other ones like oil pan bolts, you know, things of that nature, I don't really think they're as important, and I don't think you need to take as much level of detail or care when it comes to torquing them down as specifically as, you know, all the other ones that I said. Now again, that is just my personal opinion, and I am not a professional. I would just like to state that I am not a professional. So obviously take everything I say with a grain of salt, but I don't know. Everybody has an opinion. Whether or not it's right, obviously, is a whole different story. So as I'm putting this in, I'm just making sure they thread down easily. They're not binding anywhere. So then when I come by with the wrench, I don't have any issues with it potentially stripping or doing anything like that with the bolts. So I'm just going to hand tighten these right now, and then I'll come back and actually torque them all down. that's an interesting spot. Alright, 3/8. Alright, so unfortunately the ones that are directly underneath the intake are kind of not in a great spot. So unfortunately I have to hit these with a wrench instead of a torque wrench, but there's worse things. Alright, so now these are all basically hand tight. Let's see. Alright, so they want these to be oh. Interesting. So it's saying that these inner bolts are generally not blind. So they sit in the. Yep, that is in fact true. Okay. Interesting. Alright, so I actually already messed this up. So they are recommending that on all of the internal bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9, and 11, that you use thread sealer on them, specifically silicone thread sealer, because they are not blind, or they're not blind holes, so they actually go into the oil drain right here. So in order to prevent oil from weeping out of these holes, you have to apply a sealant to it. So I'm going to go ahead and just back all of these inside ones out real quick. So that would have been a very fun oil leak for me to have to figure out. Again, while the bolts for the intake sit straight up and down on a Ford, generally speaking, in the small blocks, they don't go into the oil passage. So you don't have to worry about oil coming through. So that's a fun fact. silicone. So I'm going to put it low down on the threads and make sure I go all the way around, just to make sure that I'm not going to have any spot where it can leak through, even though I know that's way too much. It should coat the entire bolt hole going down. So this is a little bit tedious, but if you don't do it, you might have some oil seepage issues, and nobody wants to have to troubleshoot oil leaks that they cannot find. I promise you, they're not fun, and it just kills the entire project. Alright, so let's get these all back down hand tight. So now we're going to tighten in the fashion that they want you to, which is this one over here, one. So I'm going to do this in multiple passes because, well, honestly you should. So I'm not tightening these down to the 25 foot-pounds, I'm just getting them down generally hand tight, and then I'll come back and do roughly what 25 foot-pounds is. So, and the reason why I'm doing it this way is because I know that as I'm tightening these down, it's compressing this gasket and getting everything else tight. So, as you guys can see, I hand tightened all of these and they're all loose. So, just gonna make sure we do this all right. Alright, now we're gonna come back and do the 25 foot-pounds. This side first. So, okay, that's probably 25. So as you guys can see, I'm going to turn this bolt and it's going to be all the way loose. Yeah, I got, I don't know, probably a 1/16 of a turn there before it got tight. Alright, I'm just going to make one more pass all the way around just to make sure they're all tightened. So there is such a thing as too tight on these. If you go too tight, you will find that your bolt becomes a righty-loosey bolt, which, you know, is not fun. Thankfully, when it comes to manifold installs, I've not had that happen, but it always can happen. And I am still tightening all these because they are all still a little loose. So I'm going to keep going around, applying the same amount of pressure until it stops moving. And this should be the last one. So this is basically just a pass making sure that everything is still tight, nothing has loosened up. And this is the advantage to applying a little bit of that ARP lube to the head of the bolt. So as you're getting tighter and tighter on here, instead of the friction of the bolt in the washer being what you're feeling for your torque, you're actually feeling the bolt pulling the intake down, and the friction on that. So you're saving yourself a little bit of percentage of friction on the bolt heads themselves, and you're actually getting the real actual torque on the bolts. So unfortunately I did make a little bit of a mess with the RTV that I had in my gloves. That's okay, it'll buff. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the back box of parts, grab all of the rockers out of here, lay all of the rockers down with the push rods, and make sure everything looks good. I'm not going to tighten all those down yet. I got other things that I'd like to do first, but for now, actually, you know what? We'll end it here. We'll let the rockers and the push arms, or the push rods and the rockers be their own little video. So until then, I hope you guys take care, and I will see you guys next time.